Members, good morning members of the public. You're all very welcome to this meeting of Babergh District Council's Planning Committee meeting on today, 23rd of September. May I first of all remind you of some of the domestic arrangements. Please ensure that the microphones and cameras are turned off when not in use. That you do not interrupt other speakers. That if you wish to speak, point of order, declare and/or interest, or request an adjournment, please use the hands up function on the taskbar. Members are reminded that they should not have alternative communication lines open, i.e. other Skype chats, and that if you are contacted by a third party during the application, you should bring this to the legal advisor's attention. That if you are attending the meeting to speak, and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. If members do lose connection to the meeting, that they must contact the Member Support Officer, Mandy Smith, as soon as possible. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewings. The whole of the meeting will be recorded, except where there are confidential and exempt items. If you do make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the council to have consented to being recorded. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to being recorded by the council and to the possible use of those same recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The council, members of the public and press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and press are not lawfully excluded. We have Mark Russell, Area Planning Manager, Jamie Waynup, Case Officer, Ian, Planning Lawyer, and Robert Carmichael, Governance Officer. Can I now move to the agenda? Item number 1, apologies for absence. I'll ask Robert if you will take us through the roll call for members present, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just do a roll call for members. So if you could please respond with either good morning or present, please. So Councillor Sue Ayres.
Good morning.
Councillor Melanie Barrett.
Good morning.
Councillor Peter Beer.
Present.
Councillor David Busby.
Present.
Councillor John Hinton.
Present.
Councillor Lee Jameson.
Morning.
Councillor Mary McLaren.
Present.
Councillor Adrian Osborne.
Good morning. Present.
Councillor Alison Owen.
Good morning.
Councillor Lee Parker.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Plum.
Present.
And we have the ward members with us today of Councillor Jane Gould.
Good morning.
Councillor Margaret Maybury.
Good morning.
And Councillor Clyde Arthy.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chair. We are all present, and I believe, just for clarity as well, that the two public speakers are here this morning for the first item of Robin Coates from Wherstead Parish Council and Sarah Cornwell as the representative applicant agent on the first item. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll move to item 2 with declarations of any members' interest. Do I have any members? No hands are up, so I'll take that as no. Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 3 to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of September. Are there any points of clarity? They were sent out yesterday, well, the day before, I believe. No, you're all okay. Can I have a proposer, please, followed by a seconder?
I'll propose Peter.
That's yes, and seconded by Sue Ayres?
Myself, Adrian Osborne.
Oh, Adrian Osborne, Lee Jamison and Adrian Osborne.
Yeah,
thank you very much. Right, I'll ask Robert to do a roll call again.
So if you could please respond with for, against or abstain. So Councillor Sue Ayres.
For.
Councillor Melanie Barrett.
Abstain because I haven't seen them.
Councillor Peter Beer,
4,
Councillor David Busby,
4.
Councillor John Hinton,
4.
Councillor Lee Jamieson,
4.
Councillor Mary McLaren,
4.
Councillor Adrian Osborne,
4.
Councillor Alison Owen,
Abstain as I wasn't here.
Councillor Lee Parker,
4.
and Councillor Stephen Plum.
4.
Thank you, Chair. That is carried.
Thank you very much. The minutes will be signed at the next practical opportunity. Okay, members. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, which is to receive notifications of any petitions. Rob, can you
Thank you, Chair.
confirm?
None received.
Thank you very much. Item 6 is site inspections. Again, I know we can't have them at the moment. We all know why, but I have to ask, officers, are there any site inspection requests?
No, Chair.
Thank you. And members, are there any site inspection requests? No, thank you very much. Right, then we'll move on to item 6A, which is plan and applications, which we've taken it in the following order. Right, we'll Conduit Field, west of Bourne Hill, Wherstead, Suffolk. Case officer, well, I think it's on page 11. Jamie Wynup. Okay.
Brilliant, thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. I'm just going to share my screen with you, so just give me a couple of seconds.
My screen keep lowering, but it's coming back. I don't quite know what's happening. But carry on, I'm with you.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, brilliant. So I'll be presenting DC 20-00701 to you today. The site is Klondike Field, west of Bourne Hill in Wherstead. The application is a reserve matters application for the erection of 75 dwellings and the discharge of conditions that were from the outline permission. You saw the application first in August and it was deferred, and the reasons for this I'll go through in later slides, but first I'll recap and start with some context on it. I'd particularly draw members' attention to pages 18 and 20, well, 18 to 20 of the committee report and paragraphs 4 to 4.15, which discusses the reasons for deferral. So the site is outlined in red here, and the orange line, just for context, shows the boundary between Babergh and Ipswich. Then we've got a zoomed in aerial map. So the dwellings are located to the north bit of the field here. This southern bit, it will be changed from a private to public woodland, but this was approved under the hybrid application, which was the original, which I'll go on to in a little while. The star shows where the access is onto Bourne Terrace along here, and it's accessed via Bourne Hill. This is not a reserve matter as it was approved to outline. You've then got the row of dwellings along Bourne Hill, which sort of indicates where the settlement boundary is. You've then got Puddle Ducks Kindercare and a cluster of dwellings sort of to the western side, and the A137 running west and north. So in terms of planning history, in 2018, a hybrid application was submitted and outline planning permission was granted for the erection of 75 dwellings, which included the access. And a full application, well, full planning permission was granted for the change of use from the private woodland to community woodland. So that has been dealt with previously. You've then got the Section 106 legal agreement, which was signed alongside this, which secured RAMS contributions, affordable housing provision, and public open space. So these conditions were the ones that were on the outline permission and are included in the development description of this reserve matters, to discharge. It's worth noting that these are not reserve matters and could be dealt separately, but have been included for completeness. So in terms of this application, it was deferred by members on the 29th of August. It was primarily deferred for reasons of a lack of pepper potting of the affordable housing, the open market housing mix, where members sought to have more bungalows and smaller homes. You wanted to see some increased sustainability measures, a change in pathway materials along the eastern boundary of the site, increased amenity space around the apartments, and a boundary treatment details along the A137 in order to stop people cutting through. So I'll discuss the amendments that have been made to address these issues in the following slides, but firstly I'll just recap on the site and scheme. So there's a public right of way running west of the site and again sort of northeast of the site as well. There are 3 grade 2 listed buildings, so there's a public house sort of to the northeast and a set of semi-detached dwellings just to the southeast, and there are 2 TPOs as well on site. So the main thing from this map is really the flood zone. This is flood zone 2 just running here. It's primarily north and outside of the site, but there's a very small proportion that comes within the site. It's worth noting that this coincides with a condition that was put on the outline for a no build zone. So there will not be any dwellings sort of in the northern area here. In terms of the ecology matters, the site is within an area that triggers RAMS contributions, which, as I've said earlier, was secured at the outline. So I've got some photos along Bourne Hill. So the first one looks northwards along Bourne Hill towards Ipswich, and you can see that you've got the dwellings either side. Number 2 shows the approved access point onto Bourne Terrace, which again was approved outline. This will be appropriately upgraded under the conditions of the outline permission, and just to reiterate, is not a reserve matter. And then photos 3 and 4 show the rear of the dwellings along Bourne Hill. So you can see there's a range of boundary treatments from fencing, no fencing, hedgerow, trees, and also you can see a mixture of bungalows and 2-storey dwellings as well. Then you've got some other photos. These are taken sort of within the site. So the first one shows where Bourne Terrace, the access road is. You've then got the main site here. You can see that there is sort of this informal grassland pathway running here. This coincides with the eastern pathway on the application, the reserve matters application that is. And then you've got photo number 3, which looks through the car park of Puddleduck Kindercare and the frontage as well. So you can see the site is through here. As you can see, there's sort of fencing along here and some trees which progressively get thicker as you go towards the west and the rear of the site. So one of the first reasons this application was previously deferred was based on the open market mix, where members were seeking bungalows and smaller homes. There's been no change to the housing mix from what was previously presented to members. However, it is crucial to note we cannot dictate the mix at this stage, as it should have been secured at outline. It would be unlawful for us to do so at this stage. And again, I would reiterate that the emerging joint local plan policy, specifically for bungalows, whilst it holds limited weight, does show some sort of direction and seeks 3% of the total dwellings to be bungalows. This application does provide that. Another reason that the application was deferred was based on the affordable housing distribution and specifically the pepper potting. So the application now has 3 clusters. So cluster 1 here is 4 dwellings. Cluster 2 is 13 dwellings and cluster 3 is 9 dwellings, including the apartment block. All clusters are therefore now under the 15 dwelling threshold, and they are all accessed via different access roads in. Again, the affordable houses remain tenure blind, including on materials and architectural features, so you will not know that they're there. The sustainability measures were another reason that members deferred the application. They have been discharged through a condition that was imposed on the outline. This condition was for the submission of a sustainability statement. These measures have been assessed by the Council's Environmental Management Officer, and as I say, they have previously been discharged and therefore have been sorted. Many of the required sustainability measures, it's worth noting, are secured through building regulations, so that will be to do with your double glazing, things like that, and efficiency of homes. There will also be cycle storage provided on site, as well as electric vehicle charging points in the garages. And then we've got the landscaping features of the site. So there's sort of three different reasons here that this addresses for the previous reasons for deferral. So you've got the A137 boundary along here. So they will be repairing the existing post and rail fence, including an anti-climb galvanised steel in certain areas as well. And the hedgerow will be retained and also thickened in areas where there are gaps. It's also worth noting that this is a condition to be discharged, so could be dealt with outside of the Reserve Matters application, and is assessed by Suffolk County Council Highways. So they are looking at ensuring that no one is crossing the A137 unsafely. Then you've got the pathway along the eastern boundary. This pathway was previously gravel and has been changed to a trail flex surface, which has been used elsewhere for wheelchairs, pushchairs, cyclists, and it's permeable, it's even, and it retains a high standard of design suitable for the development. Finally, you've got the amenity space around the flats. This has been increased, and also a hedgerow has been included to both demarcate and screen the amenity area. Then you've got the storey heights under the Reserve Matters. So just going back to the point of bungalows. So predominantly you've got the 2-storey dwellings, you've got single-storey garages and the bungalows, and 2-storey and 3-storey apartment block. As you can see, the existing dwellings along Bourne Hill are a mixture of heights, so from 1-storey to 2-storey. There is no strong character or pattern for bungalows along there. There's no residential amenity issues that are arising from 2-storey dwellings along the eastern edge. As you can see, there are quite significant separation distances between them. And again, along the western boundary, adjacent to Puddle Ducks Kindercare, there would be a bungalow and 2-storey terraced dwellings. There's a separation distance here of between 8 and 11 metres, and actually you've got some existing and proposed hedgerow and further screening along that boundary to mitigate any overlooking.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, bear with me, my thing's just
that's fine.
Locked, isn't it? There we go. So my recommendation is therefore to grant this Reserve Matters application with conditions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I'll see if there's any points that members would like clarified by you. Can I just ask you to repeat again regarding the mix, which was the fundamental one, I believe, as to why we can't still stand firm on that? Because I think our officers are looking into how we can secure an outline in future, the mix question of dwellings. But can you just confirm that point? Because we don't want to get bogged down on that if there is nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, so as I say, there's been no change to the housing mix from what was previously presented, and although it's acknowledged that members sought more bungalows and smaller homes aligned with the local need, as this is a reserve matters application, it's unlawful for us at this stage to impose any further restriction on the housing mix that wasn't secured at outline. So as you say, we are looking at ways that we can ensure members are aware of this at the outline stage, which may be through imposing a sort of suitable condition.
Thank you. Yes, I think officers have got the message that if this sort of thing happens again, we need to have them to highlight that to us at outlining. But before I take any questions, Ian, did you want to comment on that last point? That's our legal advisor. No? Ian?
Sorry, I was muted, Chairman. I do apologise. I just wanted to come in briefly to confirm that I agree with Jasmine. It would be, I'm afraid, it would be unlawful to go beyond the parameters of the outline in that context. And as Jasmine says, we'll bear that in mind in the future. But that's all I need to say.
Thank you. Councillor Busby, followed by Councillor Hinton.
Thanks, Chair. I understand that we're not allowed to impose anything, but I want to understand myself the decision-making process that the developer's taken into determining what houses they're going to have. And I therefore like to ask the officer, she stressed the point in her report, 4.4, the question therefore is not what was intended at the time of the decision, but what a reasonable reader would understand was permitted by the local planning authority. How would a reasonable reader understand what was required, and at what stage would that be done?
Chair, may I come in here?
Yes, that's Mark Russell.
Yeah, the words in italics there were taken from a council opinion on this matter on a different site, obviously. But the point is that when we get to the reserve matters stage, we can't introduce another reserve matter, which in this case would be the housing mix, unless we'd explicitly flagged it up at outline, either by saying explicitly there shall be 10 bungalows, for example, or saying the matter of mix shall be looked at reserve matters. It wasn't flagged up, although the original outline applicant did have a nice drawing showing rows of bungalows, which one could argue is a little bit naughty if one presumed that's what's going to go to reserve matters. The legal piece of paper does not have anything saying that the purchaser of the land has got to put a row of bungalows there. All they've got is a permission, an outline permission for 75 houses with those reserve matters reserved. So we cannot bring in a new reserve matter now.
Yeah, Mark, I understand that. But what I'm trying to establish is what discussions amongst themselves the developer would have to decide on what the market mix would be, and what responsibility would they have for trying to comply with law and with the local policies. That's what I'm after, not what we can do or can't do. At what point did the developer decide that they were going to go for all housing and no bungalows along that stretch, and why? And it says what a reasonable reader could understand was permitted by the local planning authority. So that implies that the local planning authority must have had some input into that. And in fact, the NPPF actually spells out that we have to. It says under 72C that we should set clear expectations for the quality of the development and how this can be maintained, and ensure that a variety of homes to meet the needs of different groups in the community will be provided. And if that's not enough, the Shema, which we all use as the Bible, spells out exactly what the percentage of houses should be. So I'm just trying to establish at what point the developer made the decision to ignore all of this available information.
Okay, Councillor Busby, I've allowed you to make those points, and quite rightly, because I do want this point cleared up at the beginning, because we don't want to be bogged down on this. So, Mark, with the help of your
yes, I'm not aware that there was any participation from council officers before the reserve matters was submitted. So I think that's that basically. They purchased it from the outline permission owners and have pursued this scheme. So that's what they've done. You'd have to ask the applicant why they've gone for this mix. We can't answer for them.
Okay.
But so the brief answer is that these matters need to be sorted out outline.
Yeah, and I think the point members, which we must remember, and hopefully the officers will on our behalf also, that we need to make sure that in outline we do question the mix if that's appropriate. Right, any other questions? There's no other hands up, so I'm assuming there's no one else got any points of clarification.
Well, you did mention me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I did. Your hand was up, but it's disappeared. But Councillor Hinton, if you have something to ask.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything that Councillor Busby has said, but I'm a little bit confused when it says on page 11, has the application been subject to pre-application advice? Yes.
Yes.
So we obviously gave them some advice, and we obviously didn't give them enough advice about the mix of housing. So, but rather than, as you say, dwell on that point any further, I would just like to sort of know exactly what is in all the conditions. That's 8, 11, 16, 18, 28, 31, 32 and 33 of the outline approval, because these conditions are being put on by officers, are then being discharged under the discretionary powers of officers, and yet the members of this committee are not getting any sort of say in what is put on there or done or anything else. That's the first point. And the other point is that it does say within the consultation reports, highways, minor amendments required, see relevant section below. Relevant section below does not exist in our report, so I'd like to know what those minor amendments were.
These are questions to the officers, so I'll let them go. Mark and Jasmine, if you'd like to take them between you.
Yes, so I suppose I can start with the highways bits. So in terms of the conditions that highways are, they're seeking it's not really amendments, it's very minor clarifications between, and they are discussions between the developer and Suffolk County Council Highways. They're not, anything in principle that's wrong with them. It's just very minor clarifications on, for example, on the boundary with the A137, it's a case of clarifying, the material and the look of the galvanized steel. It's that sort of specific detail. So that hopefully answers that point. In terms of the conditions, I can probably get them up, but you might have to bear with me just a little while I get the specific wording, if that's something that you wanted to see. In terms of the, I suppose the delegated aspect of the conditions, I think that's something that I would ask Mark to maybe answer that point.
Yes, thanks. I mean, I do completely understand what Councillor Hinton's saying. What it seems like it's sort of not fair. Members don't get to contribute to that. But the permission was granted at outline back in, I think it was early 2019. And part of that permission was the imposition of conditions, and the conditions are delegated to officers at the moment under this current scheme of delegation. So hopefully that answers the question, Councillor Hinton.
Thank you. I think, Jasmine, if those points that Councillor Hinton want answered, you've got to look up. Perhaps you can bring them up when we get to debate, and I'll go to Councillor Hinton first. Okay?
It's fine.
Or have you got them?
I haven't at hand, but it shouldn't take me too long to find them, so I should have them in time for that.
Yep, lovely. Okay, thank you. Councillor Adrian, Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry about that. I got a bit mixed up with my buttons there. I'd just like a bit of clarification on the drawing of the housing, what we're regarding as pepper potting around the site. Could we see the that slide again, and just identify where this pepper potting is for social and affordable housing?
Do you know what number slide it was?
I'm afraid it went past me too quickly.
Oh, right.
That's fine. I can find it. Bear with me.
The reason for asking that is that on previous applications we've had reasons for doing this because of the way that they are maintained, and it's easier to have them all in one place. Are they going for that again on this site?
That again is probably something I would ask the developer in terms of maintenance of them. But
Yeah.
it is something that has come up in the past, certainly.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Osborne, put it to the applicant when he speaks.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who to ask on that one. Thank you,
Yeah, no, that's
Mr.
fine.
Chairman.
We've got the officer's view, and then we can get the applicants. There's no other hands up, members, so I'm going to move on. We now move to the public speakers. We have the Parish Council, Robin Coates. You, sir, have 3 minutes in which to address the committee. Rob, will you start the time when Robin starts speaking? Over to you, sir.
Good morning. Can you see and hear me okay?
Can't see you yet. Right now I can see you and we can hear you.
Okay, good, excellent. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this morning. I don't wish to retread the ground you've just been over, but I do think there is one important clarification from the parish point of view. The officer's report on these reserve matters states that they consider enforcing the original condition specified at the time of outline, and which details the 16 bungalows, would be placing an extra limitation on the applicant and would be illegal. But we do not believe that's the case. This is not an extra limitation. It's the enforcement of the original outline condition, condition 4. This is actually reinforced by the planning officer, who confirms in her report, Power 4.2, the only matters which can be considered following the grant of an outline permission are those that have been made subject of a condition, which is the case here. Condition 4 of the outline permission, which has 16 bungalows, states that the reserve matters must be in general conformity with its design. Reducing the number of bungalows from 16 down to 3, as Bellway are trying to do, is an 80% reduction in the number of bungalows. And I cannot see any way this can be considered in being in general conformity with the original outline approval. Wherstead Parish Council therefore request that the original outline planning permission in condition 4 be enforced. It's the original condition, and Bellway implement the original site plan with 16 bungalows and ensure that the new construction to the rear of the existing homes on Bourne Hill be single storey. And that's all we've got to comment on this morning, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Coates. I'm going to go straight to the legal advisor first to ask about condition 4, the enforcement of the 16 bungalows, so we can clear that point up.
I'm here, Chairman. Yes, I'm happy to assist you, but it might help if to set the context before I speak if the officers go first, because I know they've got something more direct to say on this precise point, I believe. Okay,
I'll get the officers to answer first, and then I'll come to you after they've spoken. Mark, Jasmine, which one?
Condition 4, which Mr. Coates refers to, does speak of general conformity. And I think if we're able to look at the presentation again, it might help, maybe not. But anyway, the layout does generally conform with that drawing, albeit that it's not bungalows, it's 2-storey dwellings. The layout generally does conform with that drawing. So we're content that it conforms.
Thank you.
Would it be of assistance? I have a slide that I didn't show you, but is on my presentation, if that's helpful, where it compares the two.
Yes, please.
Yep. Bear with me just 1 second. So this was the outline when it talks about condition 4 to do with general conformity. There is nothing on here that indicates bungalows. So when we talk about general conformity with that outline condition, this is fully in general conformity with that layout. There is nothing to indicate bungalows on here at all, unfortunately.
Right, thank you. Ian, is there anything?
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm unmuted now, hopefully. Yes, or I mean, I don't believe in overcomplicating things. My colleagues are right. I note the parish council's disappointment, but Jasmine has put it very succinctly, and I don't need to elaborate.
Thank you very much. Right, members. I can see Councillor Busby, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Chair. Just taking those two slides. The slide
this is questions to. Sorry, this is questions to the parish council representative.
Fine, I have a question, Tim. Robin, what consultation did the developer have with the parish?
So I trust you can see and hear me now.
Yes, yes.
So the consultation originally would have been with the applicant for the outline permission, which was Pigeon. Pigeon were great labours, and I accept it's not recorded in the documentation there, but it were great. Went to great lengths to stress to us that they would put bungalows down the rear housing the existing homes on Bourne Hill, because they were concerned that this would be an area where potentially people could be overlooked, and loss of light, etc. So to try and help with the community and create a development that would be better for everybody involved, they would put bungalows down there. So it was a point they made and stressed quite extensively to us. And the diagram that we've just been shown of the housing, the accompanying information that was shown to the parish at the time told us that they were bungalows. Now it may be that that's not been carried forward into that drawing. I would defer to Jasmine for that. But specifically, we were told they would be bungalows.
But what about Bellway? What discussions have they had with the parish?
We met with Bellway once. We met with Sarah Cornwell, who's here with us this morning, and went through the revised plan that she had. I have copies of it here in my office, and that showed the change from bungalows to two-storey dwellings. And I know that was raised with her at the time by various residents. It was also raised by various residents and the parish in our comments to the reserve matters.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Busby. Any other questions to the parish council? There's no hands up, so I'll take that as not. Thank you, Mr. Coates. We'll now move on. We don't have an objector or supporter, so I'll now ask the agent to speak, Sarah Cornwell. You have 3 minutes to address the committee. When you're ready, Rob, when they're ready, will you start the clock? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, members, and thank you for allowing me to speak again. As you're aware, I'm the planner for Bellway Homes.
I'll stop you there a moment. We can't see you. I don't know whether you wanted to be seen, but we can't see you at the moment.
It says my camera's on. No, my video's not working. Hang on. No, I think you might just have to hear me.
No, that's fine. If you're Rob, did you want to say something?
To connection issues, so it's not an issue as long as you're happy, Chair, and Sarah is happy as well.
Yeah, Sarah, if you can't make the video work, then we can hear you, so you can carry on when you're ready.
I'll restart the time, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, good morning, members, and thank you for allowing me to speak again. I'd firstly like to thank officers and members for returning this application to committee so promptly. We have been working positively with the planning officers over the last month to come to a compromise on some of the outstanding issues that were raised in the previous committee. For example, we have swapped the location of the 4 HA units, so now accessed from Bourne Terrace, and their social housing is pepper potted in 3 different locations, all accessed from different roads. The revised plans also provide clarity on a number of issues, such as the public right-of-way route, landscaping upgrades that have been made to the northern boundary to prevent any access onto the road. The amenity area for the apartments have increased, and we've upgraded the HA spec to provide a washer-dryer within the apartments. We've also upgraded the path along the eastern boundary for a route that can be easily used by wheelchairs and prams. Hopefully this provides some clarity on the points referred at the last committee. I'm happy to answer some questions that were obviously raised previously.
Thank you. Members, have you any questions for the agent? I think Councillor Hinton, was it? Councillor Busby. I know one of you. Yep.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for that. Can I just say thank you for making the changes that you have done? But as you've probably guessed from the discussions that we're having, it's the mix that is obviously of interest. I'm trying to get behind the decision process that the developer takes in determining what mix they're going to put into a development. So after the last committee meeting, did you and the developer have discussions about the mix?
We did. We've had internal discussions within Bellway and also with obviously Jasmine and Mark, and it was felt that there wasn't a policy justification for it, and therefore we have made the internal decision that we wouldn't be changing the mix at this late stage. Just to provide some background on the mix, we obviously had a number of pre-application discussions that took place before we submitted the application to the council. It wasn't with Jasmine, it was a different case officer. At that stage, obviously, the mix was discussed. We discussed the bungalow specifically, and it was felt that due to the fact that there is such a significant distance between the houses on Bourne Bourne Hill and the houses along the eastern boundary, that there wasn't an amenity reason or overlooking reason or any real reason for the bungalows, except that it was previously identified by pigeon.
Thank you. Mr. Busby?
Yeah, I mean, again, are you aware of the SHMA targets that we're having to comply with?
I am now, yes. You've made that very apparent in the last committee.
Okay. But it wasn't just necessarily switching from houses to bungalows or bungalows to houses that was an issue. It was the 2 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms that was a key as well, in that, you know, we've got to provide 2-bedroom properties more than 4-bedroom, yet you're providing 5 times as many 4s as 2s. Again, how does the developer square that equation?
As previously said, that we go through this process at the pre-app stage, and if it's not raised by the planning officer at that stage, it's something that that we just progress through the design process. The amount of 2 beds wasn't raised previously. Perhaps it should have been, but it wasn't, and so we have progressed with the 3 and 4 bedroom houses. We know that ultimately that is what will sell in that area, and that's the aspirations for the market from a developer's point of view, perhaps, rather than a council's point of view. But ultimately, we're not going to build units that will end up just sitting there for years not being sold. So it's our aspirations to build and sell for the market.
Okay, I mean, I think we can drag this out as long as we like.
Yes, I don't think you're going to get any further on that, Councillor Busby.
I mean, I think it's interesting that you think that 91% of your houses will sell better because we've got 66% of the population wanting 1 and 2 bedroom houses. But that's your problem. But thank you for answering my questions.
No problem.
Thank you, Councillor Busby. Councillor Osborne, your question. Unmute. No, I can't hear you.
That's it. That's it. I'm muted, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
No, you're unmuted now.
Just interested. Sarah has answered basically the question of pepper potting. She has, and to her credit, moved them around a bit. But what I'm interested in is the block of flats. Am I assured that, or am I under the impression that there are no affordable housing within that block of flats? And secondly, does the height of those flats actually impact on the housing around it, which are obviously going to be a lot smaller in height? Thank you.
Sarah?
The HA is located within the flats. Just so you're aware, the 8 units are within flats. And in terms of the height of the block, it's a part 2-storey, part 3-storey, because of the way the lie of the land, it drops down on that northern boundary. So whilst it's 3-storey to the north, it dips down back to 2-storey because of the height of the land there. It's on a slope, so it shouldn't have a dramatic effect. No, it will be viewed as a sort of 2-storey block predominantly.
Right. Just carrying on from that, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I'm not happy about affordable housing being all in one area of flats. How many actually affordable properties have you got in those flats?
I believe there's 8.
8.
Yeah.
Yep,
it's
sorry.
very, if I'm honest with you, Councillor Osborne, it's very unusual to divide up a block of flats into private and social. It's just a maintenance issue for the excuse me, for the management company, for the HA provider, trying to divide up stairwells and ownership. It's just a nightmare. So generally they're either all private or all HA within flats.
Right, yeah, I quite understand that, and that has been the usual position with developers actually coming back to say that the maintenance of these areas that's why they're put in one area, so they can get at one block all at once. So so thank you very much for that. And as I say, in past Bellway have always done well in consultation, so yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm not happy about the height of that, but there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Cornwall, at the previous meeting, you stated that the housing mix was determined by your other developments across West Suffolk, I think, primarily. I don't think you got any around here. Have you, since that meeting and the comments from that meeting about housing mix, done anything more to ascertain from the actual needs of Babergh how you can adjust the mix?
If I'm honest with you, Councillor Hinton, no, I've not. We've made an internal decision here that we were happy with the mix and that it would meet planning, so we haven't changed the mix.
Thank you. Councillor Jameson.
Sarah, I just looking at your sustainability document regarding the environmental measures. I believe you're putting gas boilers into the properties, and I just wondered why you've decided to do that rather than heat pumps of some kind.
If I'm honest with you, we always use gas boilers. I can't remember the last time we used a heat pump, but it's something that I can raise with the technical department. But
yeah, I mean, with gas boilers being phased out in the future, I just wondered if it'd be better to go something more environmentally better.
I think it's just a new technology that we haven't used before. We've used gas boilers, and it's just what the purchaser, I think, would be comfortable with, rather than a new technology that they're not comfortable with.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Thank you, Sarah. Right, we'll move on from the agent. We'll now go to the ward member, Councillor Jane Gold. You have 5 minutes in which to address the committee. Thank you. Jane.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for giving me time to speak this morning. Not sure I've got anything to add. It's more a case of me reiterating really what Wherstead Parish Council have said. And it's the concerns about the numbers of bungalows proposed. I'm aware of the fact that housing mix is not a reserved matter because I read the documents even before hearing the debate this morning. I'm simply expressing the concerns of the residents in my ward that the original layout indicated bungalows that are not currently provided. Secondly, I would like to draw your attention to 4.14, the environmental measures. I'm pleased to hear that Councillor Jameson has mentioned this already. As far as I can see, no changes have been made to these measures. It would be good to see the management of woodland and footpaths secured via condition if that's possible, and it would be also useful to clarify the net biodiversity gain. It says under 4.14 right at the end, measures to encourage biodiversity. So if possible, it might be useful to clarify that. That's all I've got to say at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. I'll ask Jasmine whether those points have been picked up and put into conditions. Jasmine, can you help on the points that Councillor Gold has just brought to our attention?
In terms of the footpath and the management of the woodland, that would have been secured with the full application that was the original, because it was a hybrid between an outline planning application and a full application. So I think that has been resolved. And I think the maintenance and management of the public open space and the woodland is in the section 106. In terms of the sustainability measures, as I said earlier in the presentation, the sustainability measures haven't been changed between what was previously presented to you and now, based on the fact that it has been discharged in that sustainability statement in a condition that was imposed on the outline.
Sorry.
Everything? I can't.
Yeah. Any questions, members, to the ward member? No hands are up. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gould. We'll now move on to the debate. I'll now open it up for debate. Now, who would like to start? There's no hands up yet. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. I think we mustn't get too tied up with the lack of bungalows. I believe. I think it's more. Well, there's two issues with that. There is a slight feeling of being perhaps misled at some stage throughout this process. However, that came about, and it's difficult to pin that one totally down. But there's the aspect of bungalows, yes, are attractive option for downsizing. It's clearly what we need in the neighbourhood, to the area, and you know there is some provision for that. But there are other deliveries here in terms of affordable. There's it achieves the 35% affordable, which is a good aspect. The bungalows, in terms of their height and proximity to the already established houses on Bourne Hill, there is quite some distance between them. So I don't have concerns about a lack of bungalows in that respect. It's just a great shame not to see them being delivered. But in other schemes, very rarely in other schemes do we see a huge number of bungalows being built these days. And so I think we have to accept that actually our aspirations are not always shared for that. Also, the number of 2 beds against number of 4 beds. I think it's more fundamental, really, might be a focus on square footage of the house, because many 2-bedroom houses are just not very, could not accommodate home working very easily, especially if, you know, two members of the family needed to work from home. 4 beds does probably present that opportunity, and as we go forward, we know that it's likely we're going to be needing to have that flexibility in our homes. So I'm just trying to weigh up and be reasonably realistic about what we should be expecting. Although naturally we're all very disappointed about the bungalows. Should that be a reason for concluding that this should be refused? I don't really think so. So I'll be interested to hear what other views are.
Thank you. I think you have some very valid points there, but also I think there's lessons for us to learn as members and for officers to learn on this. So I think that will have been very useful from that point of view. But I do have Councillor Busby next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it would appear as though our hands are tied. We can't really do anything about it. However, the NPPF, which is the basic guidelines to which we should comply, says under section 127, planning policies and decisions should ensure that developments optimise the potential of the site to accommodate and sustain an appropriate amount and mix of development. I mean, these are the basic planning ground rules that we should comply with. It doesn't say that has to be decided upon right up front or right at the very end. That's an underlying principle that we should make decisions on. And this is a decision-making process. So I still think I hear what all the experts say. If I had enough money, I'd back us with an inspector, but I haven't, so I can't. And what concerns me is if we apply this principle to, we've got, was it 4,500 houses that have been approved, maybe on outline planning applications. How many of those are where the developer's going to come to us and say, oh yeah, we're going to put up blocks of flats, or we're going to put 5-bedroom houses and you can't do anything about it? Are we really saying that we can't have any influence over a planning decision on the mix of housing once it's got past outline planning? Because I find that incredible.
Thank you. I understand and share your frustration, but I think the points have been answered. But I will ask the legal and the officers if they wish to respond to what you've just said before I go to the next member, which is Councillor McLaren. Officers, Mark.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I do hear and understand what Councillor Busby's saying, but I would hope that the relevant paragraphs in the report make it clear what the response to that would be. I would also say that, hear what you're saying about the bungalows, but you would have to conclude that even without the bungalows, which had been promised and dangled there like a carrot, the scheme is acceptable anyway. It wasn't the amount of bungalows that made it okay last time. That was just something that made it look even better, if you like, for members. The two-storey houses don't produce overlooking or loss of light or any of that sort of thing. So from a development management perspective, they're acceptable. So and in terms of the permission that Councillor Busby responded to, it's got a permission. It was the outline permission. That's when it got permission, and these are the reserved matters of that permission, of which mix is not one. So it's the same answer to the same sort of question, understanding totally his frustration, but I hope members would come away with the conclusion that the scheme is all right anyway. It's just that you're disappointed you haven't got more bungalows.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a comment about pepper potting. This comes up, we've had it in a few applications, and when the applicants come back with a revised plan, you still find a concentration of affordable housing in a particular area. And to me, looking at the one today, yes, they've separated them, but human nature is unpredictable. And I just find it unacceptable that affordable housing is still sort of corralled in a certain area away from the majority of the plan. Thank you.
I think you have a valid point there, but we are where we are with the application in front of us.
Understand that, Chairman.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll see if Jasmine's got any comments to give you on that. Jasmine?
Yeah, I suppose the only thing I can sort of comment on is that technically they are considered as 3 clusters, and they are all under the 15 dwelling threshold, which is in our supplementary planning documents on guidance for affordable housing. That's all I can really say. I understand obviously they are all to the western side of the site, but
if I could come in, Chair, as well, we have to think about the registered social landlords. That they actually, if you take the planner's dream of full integration, I mean, pepper potting is probably a misleading phrase because it suggests an affordable, a market, an affordable, like that is sprinkled. And actually the reality is that registered social landlords don't like working that way. They do like the housing in groups. So it's never going to be sprinkled across, but it's preferable to be in blocks here and there. So this scheme has moved towards that. It could have been better, but it does have it in 3 distinct blocks in a way which a registered social landlord would be happy to work with.
Thank you. I can see the look on your face, Mary, but thank you. Councillor Osborne. Councillor Osborne, you've got your hand up and you're still muted.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's getting me handed to go onto the.
That's it. We can see and hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one thing with, as we always say, is the design of the affordable housing. I hope will will not look any different to the other housing that is there, because that's what determines the look of a development and could bring a development down into what we've had in lot earlier years. The other position I just wanted to make, and I stand to be corrected here, but the Section 106 requirements, am I led to believe that the heads and tails of this has not been completed? So therefore, the monies that would be contributed towards open space and schools and whatever else the monies go to has not yet been set up. Am I correct in that?
I'll go to Jasmine, but I think the last meeting we were given assurances that the materials were going to be the same. But Jasmine, can you help on those 2 points that Councillor Osborne has brought out, or Mark?
Yes, of course. So they are completely tenure blind units in materials, architectural features, everything. So you will not be able to tell that they are affordable houses. In terms of the Section 106 and the contributions, that has to be dealt with at outline. So that has already been signed and secured.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's only that normally when you see the full application and the reserve matters, you see the amounts that actually have been put within those areas. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, and forgive me, Chair, if this has already been answered, but Councillor Hinton alluded to it at the outset, actually, and Jasmine, I think you said you were going to go away and find them, but if members were minded to support this application and approve the recommendation as set out, what are those conditions? 8, 11, 16, 18, 28, 31, 32 and 22?
Well done, I've made a note of them. Good.
Shall I? I have
Yes,
got
please.
the document up now, if that's useful, yeah?
Yes, if you can give the answers to Councillor Parker and the rest of the committee. Thank you.
Bear with me, I'll just get it up for you. Can you all see my screen?
Just.
Okay. Right, so condition 8 is this one here. So this relates to the external materials which they have submitted to us.
Can you read it out to us? I can see it, but perhaps some can't. But just read that paragraph.
So prior to above ground construction, details of the external materials of the buildings shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The development shall be undertaken in accordance with the agreed details.
Thank you.
Then bear with me, I've just got it right. So 11 is the next one.
Yeah, scroll up.
So 11 is before development is commenced, details shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority showing the means to prevent the discharge of surface water from the development onto the highway. The approved scheme shall be carried out in its entirety before the access is first used and shall be retained thereafter in its approved form.
Thank you.
Then we've got condition 16 is the next one. So before the development is commenced, details of the areas to be provided for the parking of vehicles shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The approved scheme shall be carried out in its entirety before the development is brought into use and shall be retained thereafter and used for no other purpose.
Thank you.
We've got 18. Prior to above ground construction, a plan indicating the positions, design, materials and type of boundary treatments to be planted and or erected along the boundary of the site with the public highway, which is the A137, shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. This boundary treatment shall be completed in accordance with details and a timetable to be firstly agreed in writing with the local planning authority and shall be maintained thereafter.
Thank you.
28 is No development should take place until a long-term monitoring and maintenance plan in respect of contamination, including a timetable of monitoring and submission of reports to the local planning authority, shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority, unless otherwise agreed in writing with the local planning authority. Reports as specified in the approved plan, including details of any necessary contingency action arising from the monitoring, shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. Any necessary contingency measures shall be carried out in accordance with details in the approved reports. On completion of the monitoring specified in the plan, a final report demonstrating that all long-term remediation works have been carried out and confirming that remedial targets have been achieved shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority.
Thank you.
Then 31. Prior to the commencement of development, a surface water drainage scheme shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The scheme shall be in accordance with the approved flood risk assessment and include dimensioned plans and drawings of the surface water drainage scheme. Modelling shall be submitted to demonstrate that the surface water runoff will be restricted to a rate suitable for the highway culvert underneath the A137 for all events up to the critical 1 in 100 year rainfall events, including climate change, as specified in the flood risk assessment. Modelling of the surface water drainage scheme to show that the attenuation/infiltration features will contain the 1 in 100 year rainfall event, including climate change. Modelling of the surface water conveyance network in the 1 in 30 year rainfall event to show no above ground flooding, and modelling of the volumes of any above ground flooding from the pipe network in a 1 in 100 year climate change rainfall event, along with topographic plans showing where the water will flow and be stored to ensure no flooding of buildings or off-site flows. Topographical plans depicting all exceedance flow paths and demonstration that the flows will be routed to areas of least vulnerability and will not flood buildings on or off the site. And if they are to be directed to the surface water drainage system, then the potential additional rates and volumes of surface water must be included within the modelling of the surface water system. The scheme shall be fully implemented as approved.
Thank you very much.
The final one is 32. Prior to commencement of development, details of the implementation, maintenance and management of the surface water drainage scheme shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The strategy shall be implemented and thereafter maintained in accordance with the approved details.
Thank you. I think that's all been very helpful. Councillor Parker?
Yeah, it has indeed. Thank you very much, Jasmine, for that very fulsome explanation. So, I mean, Chair, if I may, I've got the greatest respect as ever for you know, the impassioned points that Councillor Busby puts forward, and he does so because. Yeah. You know, he genuinely cares, and it's right that that we do question. But I think that Mr. Russell has hit the nail on the head, really, in the last thing he said in there. And that yes, of course, it is disappointing that we've had bungalows dangled before us, but essentially, is the application that before us, is it so objectionable so as to make members you know, not approve this application? And for me personally, it isn't. If we take all of the you know, the legalities to one side and we deal with what is actually in front of us here, is the application that stands before us acceptable? And I have to say we've seen far more controversial applications that sit before us, and so taking it in its you know, taking it as it is, as a planning application, I can't object to this, Chair. So on that basis, I would like to make a proposal that actually we accept the officer's recommendation as it's laid out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a Councillor Barrett?
Yes, I'd like to second that. Yeah, it's a good point. And one at the back of my mind too, that it's overall it's a scheme, and if we set aside everything else that we know about the previous details and just look at it simply as what's proposed now, we may well have concluded, you know, and seen it in a different light favourably.
Thank you. So you've seconded it. We'll carry on. I have 3 more members. Hopefully there'll be new points rather than dwell on some of the old ones. I've got Councillor Hinton, followed by Councillor Jameson, followed by Councillor Ayres. Councillor Hinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick point on those conditions. Thanks very much indeed for reading them out to us, Jasmine. Especially all the sort of legalese that's included in them, which means that there's a paragraph which actually says absolutely nothing, which is quite interesting. But one thing that does come out is that the susceptibility of this site to problems concerning surface water drainage and potential flooding. Is there a SUD scheme in place for this site? Because no mention of that has been made anywhere. Presumably that would have been included in somewhere, and should it therefore be included in any recommendations that we put forward?
Good point. Jasmine?
So in terms of surface water, flooding events, everything like that, they are all assessed by the local lead flood authority, which is Suffolk County Council. They are the ones that do, they look at all the flood risk assessments, which were submitted with the outline. Those conditions are pretty much lifted from what they have recommended to us. So we don't alter them in any way. In terms of all of the mitigation measures, they are completely assessed by Suffolk County Council Floods and Water, and as planning officers, we are not the experts in any way to do with flooding and things like that. So we do rely on them to provide us with the advice and guidance on what needs to happen with the site. And as far as this goes, Suffolk County Council Floods and Water haven't raised any objection to the reserve matters and to those 2 conditions that they wish to discharge.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just come back on that and say, so what is the answer? Yes, there is a SUD scheme, or no, there isn't? Because I'm afraid when it comes to Suffolk County Council and their flood assessment, I don't have that much confidence, having been the council's representative on the Flood and Emergency Committee panel for some time, when an exercise showed that the concrete wall that was recommended and built along the front of Ipswich docks to keep floodwater out was a potential problem in it. If the water ever got behind it, they could never get it out again, because it was a solid concrete wall. What is the actual SUDS arrangement? Is there one or isn't there one?
Jasmine?
So I'm just having a look through the conditions that are on the outline, and condition 33 is actually that the development hereby permitted shall not be occupied until details of all sustainable urban drainage system components and piped networks have been submitted. So I think it's there. It would be coming at a later date, though.
Thank you. You're unmute, please, Councillor Hinton.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. So this was a condition from the original grant of planning permission and isn't covered by this reserve matters. It's something that's still outstanding.
Yeah, if I may, yes. I mean, we get the situation where you've had an outline and you've got reserve matters, and sometimes the conditions and the reserve matters can cross over a little bit. For argument's sake, because I don't think condition 33 has been discharged yet, the applicant could find that they're in a bit of a mess if they don't do that. You'll notice that it's actually expressed as prior to occupation. So that they need to sort it out, basically. It could affect the layout, at which point they'll have to come back to committee. So one would hope that they've got something up their sleeve and they know what they're doing. It will fall on them if it doesn't work out properly.
Thank you. Councillor Jameson.
Thanks, Chair. In terms of addressing climate change by design, looking at both CS15 and the MPPF, it states that new development should address climate change by incorporating or producing sources of renewable or low carbon energy. And looking at the company's sustainability statement, I can see no mention of solar panels. And as I said earlier, they're putting in gas-fired boilers when a lot of development companies are already putting in heat pumps, and it's just quite disappointing, really.
I don't know if there's any comments on that. I wasn't aware that all gas boilers were being banned by a certain time. But
I
anyway,
think we covered that, Chair, in the report, in the amended paragraphs. I mean, these measures have been looked at by our sustainability officer and been discharged as one of the conditions. I note the disappointment could have been better, but these have been discharged, these matters.
Right, thank you. Councillor Ayres.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to come in and second that, but I'd just like to say I totally agree with the comments by Councillor Barrett and Councillor Parker, and I would also be happy to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, if there's no new points that anybody wants to bring up, and there's no hands up, Councillor Jameson, I think you've left your hand up. Yeah, there's no new hands, then I shall go to the vote. It has been proposed and seconded, but before I do that, I'll ask the Chief Planning Officer to read out the proposal on the table, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just open that up, and basically it hasn't changed from the agenda, so it's recommending approval with conditions, which I will now refer to. I mean, they're on the agenda, so it's that basically.
Thank you. Councillor, Rob, will you now do a roll call, because it's been proposed and seconded? We'll now go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So if members could please respond with for, against or abstain. So Councillor Sue Ayres.
For.
Councillor Melanie Barrett.
For.
Councillor Peter Beer.
Reluctantly for.
Councillor David Busby.
Yeah, sorry, I can't. Against.
Councillor John Hinton.
I can't either. Against.
Councillor Lee Jameson.
Against.
Councillor Mary McLaren.
For.
Councillor Adrian Osborne.
Disappointingly for.
Councillor Alison Owen.
Very reluctantly, but for.
Councillor Lee Parker.
Yeah,
For.
just finishing.
For. Robert.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Parker. For Councillor Stephen Plum.
Reluctantly for.
Thank you, Chair. I make that 8 votes to 3 carried. Mr. Dupre, do you confirm?
Yeah. Sorry if you can hear me. I think I've got some skateboarders going past my house. Sorry for the noise. Yes, I agree with your count, Mr. Mark Carmichael. 8 for, 3 against.
Thank you. Then that is carried. Thank you very much. Now, do you want a comfort break for about 7-8 minutes? Come back at
please.
11 o'clock. Okay, and then we'll take the Lavenham one. Okay, so comfort break. We'll resume again at 11 o'clock. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Would you now like to conduct a roll call, Robert?
Thank you, Chair. So we'll just make sure everyone is back. So if you could please respond to let me know that you are in the meeting still. So Councillor Ayres?
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Barrett?
Yes, I am.
Councillor Beer?
Present.
Councillor Busby?
Yeah, present.
Councillor Hinton?
Present.
Councillor Jamieson?
Yeah, here.
Councillor McLaren?
Present.
Councillor Osborne?
Present.
Councillor Owen?
Sorry, present.
Councillor Parker?
Present.
Councillor Plum?
Present.
And 2 ward members of Councillor Arthey and Councillor Maybury.
Present.
Brilliant, thank you all. We are all present and there are no public speakers for this application.
Thank you. I'll now ask the, sorry, we're now at Tender Piece, Common Room, Lavenham. Okay, and the case offer Babergh. Would you like to take us through this application, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just put the presentation up.
Yes, we can see. Oh, right. Yep, now you've got it.
Okay, can you see the first slide?
Yeah, full plan and application. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the proposal before us today is for full planning application for the erection of a single-storey front extension and external alterations to Tenterpiece Common Room in Lavenham. The application is before committee today because the site is owned by Babergh District Council and leased by Lavenham Parish Council, the applicant. So the application site is situated within the village of Lavenham. It is also within.
Sorry to interrupt you, Avril, but on my screen, I've got my picture come up in the corner of your slide. I don't know if anybody else can see that. If you can't, then that's fair
yeah,
enough.
I can see you there as well. Hang on.
If you share your screen slightly differently, it should change it around. So if you stop sharing.
Okay.
And then if you do, instead of share screen, if you share a window, share the specific program of PowerPoint, that should solve that.
Okay, I'll try that. Is that better?
Yep, that's solved it.
That's wonderful.
Oh, have you got that back?
Yes, slide 2 we're on.
No, it's good.
Okay, that's fine. It's just me who can see it then. Yeah, sorry. So the application site is located within the village of Lavenham and it is also within the settlement boundary. The orange indicates where the common room is situated. Tenterpiece is the residential estate indicated here. It comprises a sheltered housing scheme amongst other dwellings. It is to the north of the B1071, which is the main road passing through Lavenham. Okay, so this is the site location plan submitted with the application, with the red line indicating where the common room is located. The common room is situated within the southwestern terrace block of Tenterpiece, comprising numbers 9 to 17. This shows the aerial map. You can see these terrace blocks here are Tenterpiece. The parking for the site, they're parking in the turning head here, but you can also see that cars park on the highway here. The tree belt to the north of the site is protected under a tree preservation order, and you can see the church to the southwest. So the church, St. Peter's and St. Paul's Church to the southwest is Grade 1 listed. There are also Grade 2 and Grade 2 star properties listed fronting the B1071. you can, as I said previously, the site is within the built up area boundary, which is illustrated in brown on the map, and the application site is within Lavenham Conservation Area. And turning to the block plan, the red line plan illustrates where the front extension will be situated. The grey here is the parking area with a grassed area to the front of the site. There are also external alterations proposed to the rear elevation, shown here, and I will discuss those on further slides. This is the existing elevation of just the common room area of that terrace block. The external alterations listed in the description of development include this single access door and steps, which are proposed to be removed and bricked up. And the front extension will be located where the 3 windows and single access door is on the front elevation. The existing materials for the building include buff brick with black cladding to the first floor, and it has a peg tile roof. The floor plan illustrates the current layout. So the proposal, as previously mentioned, it's to remove the door and steps and brick up with matching brickwork. The front extension is for a mono-pitched lean-to extension. It will protrude 1.9 metres from the front elevation and be 5.3 metres in length. The roof will extend a further 1.65 metres to provide a covered area for this access doorway here. It'll have 4 windows to the front with 1 on either side, and 2 Velux windows also proposed. In terms of materials, they will be brickwork and cladding to match the existing building, and it will have a slate roof. This is the proposed floor plan. You can see the dimensions of the extension shown here, and the dashed line on the floor plan shows the existing floor plan and where the common room is currently situated. You can see the access door will be removed, and there are some internal alterations which are not subject to planning. Here are some photos of the site. This is numbers 9 to 17 10 to piece is this block along here. You can see the parking area here, and the common room is central in the photograph. Just a zoomed in version of the current common room frontage. You can see the 3 windows and access door here. The front elevation facing west, you can see the Grade 1 listed church in the background, which is screened by some mature vegetation to that boundary. And this is a view from the common room facing the car park. Finally, the rear elevation, the doorway, which is to be removed, is behind this kind of trellis boarding here. So a picture is quite difficult, but it will replicate kind of the doorway looks similar to this with the steps here behind there. Since writing the report, the consultation period has now expired. We have received 2 consultation responses, one from Economic Development and one from the Heritage team, both of which can be found in the tabled papers, which I believe you received yesterday. The Economic Development team chose to provide no comments, and the Heritage team concluded that the proposal would have no harm to the setting of the listed building, both the Grade 1 listed church and the properties along the B1071, and the character and appearance of the conservation area. On that basis and compliance with local plan policies, my recommendation is for approval with the standard timeframe and approved documents conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, April. Right, I'll see if the members have got any points of clarification. I've just got a couple. the roof lights that you show in slide 8.
Yeah.
Does that open into a large common room, or is there a corridor? Because when you show slide 11 and 12, it looked like there was a corridor behind. I can't see why they've got roof lights in that front little bit.
No, I believe they're just over kind of the extension part here. So they're not shown on this plan, but they will just be.
So it does open up into a larger room, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's one large room.
That makes sense to me now. Thank you. Members, Councillor Hinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. I can understand why those roof lights are there, because obviously the main part of the common room will get a bit dark with that bit stuck out the front there. My question is to do with the rear access, the rear door. Once you've bricked that up, there's only one way in and out of these premises. If this is for sheltered housing, namely sort of elderly or infirm persons, one access surely is a little bit of a risk. What the health and safety say about that?
So we don't consult kind of the health and safety. That would be a separate matter. Obviously, each kind of section of the sheltered housing scheme, I mean, this one is only for the common room, a kitchen area. It's kind of a communal space. And obviously each then apartment or kind of dwelling house has its own access.
I think Councillor Hinton has a point there. Only one access in the escape route.
Once people are in there, they're in there.
Everett or Mark, can you help out on this?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think we've possibly strayed into building regulations matters a little here in terms of, I don't know if you think fire escape, whatever you're thinking about. I'm also not fully convinced that it would need planning permission anyway. I'm not going to definitely say that, but it seems like a minor matter, which I would ask didn't obstruct you in your decision-making process.
Well, I don't know if it's a minor matter with blocking up a doorway and only having one exit. I think I have to share Councillor Hinton's concerns here. Councillor Hinton, did you want to come back?
Yes, I think as this is a Babergh property as well, it would not show the council in very, very good light if at some future occasion there was a necessity for getting people out of there in a hurry and there was only one means of doing it. I can't also see, all right, I understand there are going to be some minor internal alterations, but why are you bricking up the back door anyway? Is it so that you can just got more wall space? In which case, surely there is an opportunity to produce an extra access somewhere.
I think this is obviously a decision that the operator has made. If you want us to feed back to our estates department that as the owner of the building, councillors have asked why are you bricking it up, we can do that. But in terms of a planning authority making a decision, the fact we own the site obviously should be immaterial.
I can see Councillor Maybury has put her hand up. If it's on this point that we're trying to get clarification on, I think I can let you speak. Is that correct, Ian?
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Yes,
wait a minute. Councillor Maybury, just bear 1 minute. I just need the legal people to okay it. Ian?
Well, in effect, does the ward member wants to ask a question to the presenting officer? I think, have we allowed that in the past? I suspect we have. Yeah.
I think she may have some comment on the this rear door, and it obviously is a concern.
Yes, I think nothing legally wrong.
And I think I'd like to allow it if it's specifically on this point, Councillor Maybury.
Mr. Chairman, it is. I have intimate knowledge of this building. If you will see from the proposed floor plan in front of you, there is a stairway through a corridor from the external door, which is one exit. Otherwise, the properties are on an upper floor at that point, which has a long outdoor corridor which is completely open to the elements apart from a roof, which provides also escape routes in two positions that definitely one position that I can remember. So there are exits. You can't actually see, that is the open corridor for the top flats. and to the, I'm not very good at this, but as you're looking at it to the right, there is another external staircase, if that helps you at all. And the rear door is to be bricked in to allow for a much larger kitchen, because at the moment, if one person is in the very tiny kitchen,
I think I must stop you there. Thank you. I think you clarified that point. I think, Councillor Hinton, this is something that we may have to pick up as we go through the debate, because I think it is important. Is there any other questions to the officer for clarification? No? Thank you. Right, then we'll move on to the public speakers, which don't have any. So I'll now ask for the ward members to speak. We have two. You both have 5 minutes each. That's Councillor Arfi and Councillor Maybury. Well, I think ladies first, unless Councillor Arfi wants to go first. Councillor Maybury.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me this opportunity to speak. The planning application for alterations to the common room at Tenterpiece, Lavenham, I have lived, breathed and worked on over the last 4 years. And finally, hopefully it will come to fruition. I'm delighted that this planning application is before the Planning Committee. Within Babergh owned properties, we enjoy a variety of homes and facilities, and the opportunity to improve, enlarge, make it accessible. Currently, there is no accessible ground floor lavatory, and visually appealing is a great vision for the district as a whole. To reiterate that Babergh District Council are open to all and will listen to the needs of residents. The Parish Council at Lavenham have put a great deal of work into the use of an existing property, working alongside different groups within the village. And I thank them, their chairman, Councillor Carol Reeve, and their lead councillor on community engagement, Councillor Doreen Twitchett, for never giving up on a plan to improve the lives of others. Babergh officers, as consulted under community issues, have supported this application as they too see the wisdom of such a combined use for a building to improve the lives of others. This week has seen a National Day for Alzheimer's, and anyone with a connection for someone with this disease would have been heartened to have the profile of sufferers and their carers increased. The planning application for Tenterpiece will in fact help local residents with this disease, as the Lavenham Dementia Group meets, when regulations allow, at this address. Residents, along with other groups, many of which are vulnerable and older, will have, if this application is approved, a safe, accessible, warm and inviting, as well as intimate place to meet, to pass the time of day, to socialise and to ease the trauma of loneliness. I fully support this application, and I urge the Planning Committee to approve the application this morning as recommended by officers. And thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maybury. Members, do you have any questions for the ward speaker? Councillor Hinton, your hand is up.
Apologies, Mr. Chairman, I'll bring it down.
Oh, right, thank you. There's no hands up. Thank you, Councillor Maybury. There's no questions to you, so I'll go to your fellow councillor, ward member, which is Councillor Clive Arfi. Councillor Arfi, you have 5 minutes in which to address the committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I won't be that long. Firstly, there's just a slight correction to Avril's presentation. She referred to the B1071 as being the main road passing through Lavenham. Unfortunately, it's not. The A1141 also passes through Lavenham. I wish it didn't, but it does. Okay. Just on the application, as you all probably know from the SIL papers I presented to Cabinet, the proposals are also part of a current SIL bid. Yeah. They are acceptable in planning terms, and they haven't proved to be at all contentious. As you can see in the papers, the application is only before you because of the council's interest, and I also support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arthey. Members, is there any questions to the ward member, Councillor Arthey? No hands are up. Thank you very much. Right, we'll now move to debate. I'll open it up. Who would like to start? Councillor Hinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just really, I would like to propose we accept this application, the officer's recommendation for this application, but I would just like a note to be made that we look at the accessibility of this common room. I take all that Councillor Maybury said about the upstairs landing and its outside access and ability to get out, etc. But I'm concerned about people in this one common room only having one entry and exit point, and they are both the same. Bricking up the back door might improve the kitchen layout, etc., but it does rather restrict the opportunities to get out of the building if anything should happen in that kitchen. Yes, there's plenty of access points for the people upstairs to get out, having got the notification that there's something going on in that kitchen, but not for the people in the common room. There's only the one way in, and it's the same way out. So I would like to propose this recommendation with that reservation that if it is looked at by building regs or by fire and safety or whoever needs to approve the overall use of the room.
Thank you. I'll check to see if we can do that. First of all, Mark or Avril, I don't know whether this would be acceptable. It's really yes or no.
You seem to be asking for an informative, which is fairly harmless. That can be added to the foot of the decision notice.
Thank you. Because I do share Councillor Hinton's concerns on that. But Councillor Ayres, I'm looking for a seconder and your hand came up.
Yes, I'd be quite happy to second that, because I live in a complex quite similar for people that are over 55. But in these recent times, because we do have an area outside for those with Alzheimer's or any other problems, it's been so useful. And looking at the pictures of that, obviously they could communicate with each other outside. And I think it's really, really important, and I would definitely second it. A little bit worried about the access, but I think it's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand it's sheltered housing. Am I led to believe that there will be this is a warden-controlled area? Because some of these properties have had their wardens taken away, but this is a fairly new area, so I would have thought there would have been one there. Am I correct?
Can somebody help us on this? We used to have them, I know.
I can help on that point.
Yes.
When I rang and spoke to the parish,
hang on, I'll just introduce you so that the public know. Councillor Jan Osborne, whose portfolio this is. Jan?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just to clarify Councillor Adrian Osborne's query, they do have a warden on site, not 24/7, but they do have access to a warden as the scheme is sheltered. Hope that answers his question.
Thank you. I'm sure he'll come back if it doesn't.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right, thank you. I've got two hands still up, John Hinton and Sue Ayres. I don't know whether they were left up. Yes.
Sorry,
Councillor Ayres, you got another question? Yes, go on.
No, sorry, I'd take it down. I haven't.
No, it's still up, but anyway, I know you're not. There's no other hands up then. Just bear with me. That's my computer's just right. Right, it's been proposed and seconded. I'm going to go to the vote now and ask Robert to do the roll call. been proposed and seconded.
Thank you, Chair. So if I will now ask members to please respond with for, against or abstain. So Councillor Sue Ayres.
For.
Councillor Melanie Barrett.
For.
Councillor Peter Beer.
For.
Councillor David Busby.
For.
Councillor John Hinton.
For.
Councillor Lee Jamieson.
For.
Councillor Mary McLaren.
For.
Councillor Adrian Osborne.
For.
Councillor Alison Owen.
For.
Councillor Lee Parker.
For.
And Councillor Stephen Plum.
For.
Thank you, Chair. I make that unanimously carried.
Yes, I agree, Chairman. Mr. Carmichael, unanimously carried.
Thank you very much. That has been approved. We've now come to the end of the meeting, members. I'll just remind you the date and time of the next meeting, which is scheduled for Wednesday, the 7th of October at 9:30. Thank you all for your attendance today. Thank you, members of the public and the speakers, and all have a good day.